As a judge weighs in on former President Trump's federal indictment, we now have a new special counsel appointed to investigate President Biden's son, Hunter, ahead of an election year that could be significantly defined by what's happening in the courts. All this as the Justice Department goes back to court to try and limit the evidence the former president and his team can share. The judge ruling Friday that President Trump's right to free speech isn't absolute, even as he uses social media to go after potential witnesses like former VP Mike Pence. Let's get the latest now from our Washington bureau. Here's Jesse Tenor.
The former president made his stance clear during his first campaign rally since facing a third criminal indictment.
They're not taking away my First Amendment right.
Former President Donald Trump returned to the campaign trail Tuesday, where he promised supporters he would keep talking about the criminal cases against him.
There was never a second of any day that I didn't believe that that election was rigged. It was a rigged election.
Special counsel Jack Smith is asking for a protective order to stop Trump from publicly disclosing evidence related to his 2020 election loss. Smith says the former president is seeking to try the case in the media rather than in the courtroom. But Trump's legal team is fighting the order.
I will talk about it. I will.
A protective order is not a gag order.
George Washington University law professor Paul Schiff Berman says the order would only prevent Trump from revealing confidential information.
It's not relevant to his First Amendment rights at all.
Schiff Berman says this back and forth between the former president and the Justice Department is only delaying the start of the trial, which he says is what Trump's team wants.
Presumably in hopes that Trump would win the election and could then somehow scuttle the federal prosecution altogether.
In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
All right, Jesse, thanks. This week, we're also hearing from presidential candidate and former VP Mike Pence, who was sharply criticized by Trump online in one of the social media posts that some thought might cross the line into witness intimidation. Meantime, the former Indiana governor has now qualified for the first Republican debate later this month. And this week, he spoke with News Nation about his campaign for president against his former boss and the mixed reaction he's received from some Republican voters when it comes to his role on January 6th.
The Republican primary voters, there's a big percentage of them who are still very angry with you about that. And I'm wondering, can you win without them? And if not, how do you convince them that you were right on that day?
Well, look, I really do believe that number of voters is growing smaller every day. But for me, the challenge is just going to be to recognize that for the last 2.5 years, my former running mate and many of his allies in the media and the public debate have been telling those same Republicans that things that just aren't so. Candidly, the president asked me on that day to choose between him and the Constitution, but I chose to keep my oath to the Constitution of the United States, and I always will.
All right, also this week, we're speaking with several members of Congress from Indiana, home from Washington this month with Congress out on recess. Here's what Representative Andre Carson had to say about the charges the former president is facing.
It serves as an example that as a sitting president, you can't incite a riot, which resulted in a few casualties, unfortunately. And so I think this is a mile marker for future presidents.
I also spoke this week with Indiana Senator Todd Young. He's been fairly vocal lately in his criticism of the former president, who he says he will not support in the GOP primary. I sat down with Young here in our studio on Tuesday.
There's a lot to discuss in the news, obviously. Yes. We have to start with some of these federal charges filed against former President Trump recently. Mike Pence saying, quote, he should never be president again. You've said you won't support the former president in the primary, but what if he's the nominee? Would you support him or vote for him if he is? And are you getting closer to making any endorsements for any of the other candidates in the Republican primary?
Well, I certainly won't be campaigning for him. I won't be out encouraging others to be supportive of him. We've got a lot of great congressional candidates and Senate candidates, and of course we don't control the United States Senate right now. So I've got plenty of good Republican conservative work to keep me busy. My hope is that President Trump isn't the nominee because of all the distraction he brings. And frankly, I'm really concerned that we're going to end up with another term of President Biden if Trump's our nominee.
Anyone else you'd be inclined to support?
You know, we have a lot of talented individuals, Vice President Pence among them. Anyone who can restore some measure of dignity to the office and take our country in a somewhat different direction on a number of fronts, including national security, I'll be supportive of, with the one caveat I just offered.
You were there in Washington on January 6th. What are your thoughts on this latest indictment related to the events of that day and some of the rhetoric leading up to it?
God, what a horrible day that was. Listen, it's taken a period of time for prosecutors to file these charges because the evidence that had to be collected was extensive. A number of legal analysts indicate this would be a difficult case to prove. Despite what some people, based on what they saw that day, think has some moral force to it. But due process applies. That's why the case hasn't been brought yet. And my estimation is that this is going to be a difficult case to prove. We hear other commentary about some other cases, maybe the Georgia case, maybe the document case, probably the most powerful from the prosecution standpoint. But all of these cases require seriousness. So I shouldn't, nor should anyone, try and diminish the charges, but they also require due process. President Trump, whatever one thinks of him, is deserving of due process.
In the midst of that indictment news last week, our nation's credit status was downgraded, in part because of this constant threat of a government shutdown that we've seen. Come October 1st, we could face that same threat again, another potential shutdown looming that day. How concerned are you that Washington has become somewhat dysfunctional in the midst of all of this political gridlock?
It's been dysfunctional for some period of time, certainly preceding by a number of years this most recent fiscal standoff. I'll just share frustration with you and your viewers. What I'm most frustrated by, despite the very serious and important spending concessions that Speaker McCarthy was able to get in this last standoff, is the fact that so many conservatives have written off the table trying to address our entitlements. Social Security is on its road towards bankruptcy, as with Medicare and Medicaid. Those spending programs, those very important programs to our seniors and to lower income individuals are headed for insolvency, and our federal government's doing nothing. So in a bipartisan way, we need to come together and change that.
My interview there with Indiana Senator Todd Young. Meantime, this week we also caught up with Indiana Senate candidate Jim Banks, who in a rare move was endorsed ahead of the primary by the state party at the GOP dinner this past week. Here's what Congressman Banks told our affiliate in Fort Wayne.
Indiana is a conservative state, and Indiana deserves a conservative United States senator, and that's the track record that I've had as an effective conservative for Northeast Indiana. Now I have the opportunity to run to represent the entire state.
We'll have more of that interview next week.